The same people doing the cameras?
Yeah, well, sometimes, some of
Well,
them.
I was wondering about that. I'm a bit dim there. Sometimes I'm a bit spaced out, actually. This last 30 years. I've been spaced out since 67, I think.
So this one?
Yeah, thank you. Who are they lucky? We've got 5 of us now. There were just George, Martin and me doing that, but now we have an embarrassment of riches. You've got Neil Aspinall.
We've got Neil as well this time, right?
Yeah, he's around. So you can go and pick and choose. You don't have to ask me anything if you don't want to.
It
means nothing to me, either way.
foto's op zitten. Het gaat vooral om George Martin, hè?
I'm an autopilot. Sit down.
That's a good idea.
Sit down, man. The Dutch speak great English, don't they?
Yeah, well,
Very good.
we have all the channels. I mean, BBC One, NBC.
I've got satellite now, so I pick up a lot of foreign channels myself.
George Martin.
George Martin.
You are
from Neil Aspinall.
Holland.
Yeah.
Jan Vergalen from Dutch television, Holland. Orlando, Dutch radio.
How do you do? Sit down, Esquire. Hello, Mr. Martin.
Hello. Jan Vergalen, Dutch television.
And they do Dutch radio. Hi.
Okay, let's go.
Okay.
Thank you.
Now, the Netherlands.
Nederland, hè?
Holland.
I'll let you read it
afterwards.
Okay.
See, it's,
You haven't got one yet.
you'll enjoy that.
Well, I get a translation, that would be good. What language is that? Is it Finnish, is it?
Touch, thank you.
Okay. Oh,
So we've got one over
Here we are again.
Oh, here we
Good to
are
see you.
again, and a bit of television. Nice to be able to, as that old joke says.
Thank you very much.
Okay.
All right.
Okay, fire away, folks. Can we start?
Since
We'll
we
do
need
it
to be
this
nice.
Good.
And you got a plug, Neil? Mr. Aspinall is now wired for sound.
We'll do it this way. I'll start with 3 questions, then he's taking over, and then he's taking over.
Fine.
So
You're getting it,
use
Neil.
the time we have here.
You've just come unplugged.
Oh no.
That's an old problem.
Yeah, eagle eye of the
What do you mean
producer.
by an unplugged session?
Everybody's trying to be unplugged these days,
Exactly.
George.
Or unglued.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah?
Oh, sorry?
All right.
So put that. We're nearly there. It's all right.
If you do that, I was going to get the cable. Can I start? Then?
Ja, je begint.
okay.
You're allowed to flip out after about 2 hours, by the way, start talking about going through belongings and things. Yeah, you can't flip out.
Neil,
But
I'll start with a question for you.
bit
There's been
like
a lot
Blind
of
Date.
Beatle releases since the
It
split
is,
of the Beatles. Recently there was the Live at the BBC. In what way is the anthology different from the rest?
The anthology is far different from the
Very
rest
good.
because it's really the history of the Beatles, right? An audio history of the Beatles from the very first record they made, right? Right the way through their career to the end, which George has put together with the 3 surviving Beatles.
Okay. George, do you still listen to new bands, new stuff?
Have I heard the new band?
No, new groups. No, do you still listen to radio?
Oh, do I listen to?
Yeah.
Oh, well, you can't help but listening to them if you listen to the radio. And yes, I do. My son got a band, so I can't help but listen to young people. Yeah, I do listen. That's the answer. Yes.
And is there anything that, in particular, that like is meaning something to you that you think that they have got potential or something?
Well, there's some good stuff around, but you see, it's difficult for me because I've been in the business. I'm a dinosaur, and I've been in it for a long, long time. And when you work with someone like the Beatles, everything else is pale by comparison. You know, there's nothing like. I've been spoiled rotten. I've worked with the very best people, and if I hadn't done, I could give you a more honest answer. But of course, everything that I hear is not as good. It's all right though. It's okay.
So you always compare it to the Beatles then?
You can't help but compare it to the Beatles, and if you do, it's always not as good.
Okay. And Derek,
Yes.
if the 3, as a question for the 3 of you,
Yes.
if the Beatles would go back on a world tour, if they would, who would be suitable to fit in the shoes of John Lennon?
We give the same
According to
answer.
you.
Well, all of us will give the same answer. There are very few things we can be unanimous on. for certainty. There is no replacement. There will be no World Tour without John, and there could never be a replacement. There have been many names mentioned. It has all been an external perception. There's nothing, there's no truth in any of it. There never will be any truth. And George said it best. There will never be a Beatle reunion on stage, and as long as John remains dead. This thing is not a goer. This horse will not run. This parrot is posthumous, and so on.
I think that's true. I mean, it's conceivable that possibly the three of them might put on a performance at some time if the reason were really a good one. But it won't be the Beatles. It can't be the Beatles without John.
Yeah.
And there've been, you know, talks of other people replacing him. It's inconceivable.
I think rotten apples would be thrown at the stage anyway if you did that. So, and this is not on there. No.
Thank you.
Okay. I'd like to ask a few questions to you, Mr. Martin. After 33 years, this is definitely your last project with the Beatles.
Yes.
Are you sad about it, or?
I can't imagine doing any more after this. First of all, because I'm very old now anyway, and secondly, because I think they've done all that they need to do. You know, if they go on working by themselves, which they might do, they might come into the studio again from time to time. I don't think they're going to make a career out of it. Then they do it absolutely brilliantly without me, so that's fine. You know, this anthology is for me is the end of the road.
Does it hurt that you are not a producer of Freer's Bird, a new single?
Am I sorry about it, you mean?
Yes.
Well, having heard it, I wish I had been. But when I heard that they were going to do it, I said to myself, well, it can't be as good because I'm not producing it, you know. But then when I heard it, I realised that it was better than I produced it. So, yeah, it's a very good record. No, I'm not sorry about it. I'm quite happy.
Are you sorry about you weren't the producer of Let It Be? Is that a difficult point in your career?
It's not difficult because I've got over it now. But it was a troublesome thing at the time. It wasn't a very happy period for any of us, and the restrictions that were placed on all of us were very onerous, very difficult, and it was somewhat galling for me to learn that Phil Spector had come in and done all the things that I wasn't allowed to do. But that's a long time ago. I've forgotten about it.
Did Phil Spector ruin, for instance, The Long and Winding Road with the strings? Paul McCartney didn't like it.
That's an easy question.
I know, putting words into my mouth. Long and Winding Road wasn't, well, you know, when Paul heard what Phil had done to it, he wasn't too happy about it.
He was angry.
I think it's understandable.
He was angry.
Well, I didn't like it very much either, no.
Are you in history, placed in history, are you the brilliant fifth Beatle, or are you the schoolmaster or the go-between?
There are 4 Beatles. There have no, you know, there's no such thing as a 5th Beatle. If there is a 5th Beatle, it's this fella. But there are only 4 Beatles, and I was very lucky to be a producer with them and worked with them in the studio very closely, and I'm very grateful for that. And it doesn't happen to many people, so yeah.
And
but
Neil,
that's it.
Neil and I would agree that it was their great good fortune to meet George Martin too. This was a very fine partnership.
I'll give you the money later.
Thank you. And it will be very gratefully received.
Okay. Mr. Aspinall, we are very honored that you are giving us this interview, because you never gave any interview in history. Why didn't you? Was this an agreement with the Beatles and you?
No, there was no agreement with the Beatles. I just found that you know, people wanted to know